Hello, hello. I am live. G'day, James Penny. Looks like you're the only one here at the moment. But I'm sure that others will be joining soon enough. Viewer number 2. G'day, Albert. How's it going? Well, with 3 people here now, we will start with updates, which I don't really think has changed much from last week. I'm just still cautiously optimistic that things are going to get better, but don't hold your breath. Let's see. Okay, so the topic tonight is how to plan your next adventure. And I thought that this would be a fitting topic to discuss, since we are all pretty much stuck at home. And so now is the perfect time to start to plan your next adventure. So you'll notice in the thumbnail that I had 2 icons. I had the icon for Google Docs and the icon for Google Maps. Those 2 tools are going to be fundamental to a lot of your plan. I'm going to sort of run you through my method of how I plan for my next adventures and how I've planned for previous adventures. And hopefully you can sort of follow along, and I'll try and make it a bit interactive, because I can give you public access to a few of the plans and stuff that I've made in the past. So before you start thinking about anything to do with documents, the first thing you need to decide is, where do you want to go, roughly? You can plan, we'll get into the detailed planning of where we want to go, but we just want to start with roughly where we want to go. So just get up normal Google Maps, and you just sort of want to look around and see where's somewhere that you want to go. And in conjunction with this, you want to sort of think about, how much time do I have? G'day, Victorian Rail Heritage. So yeah, you want to sort of have in the back of your mind, as you're looking for new places, how long do I have? Do I have just a day? Do I not even have that? Do I only have, half a day? Or do I have multiple weeks, multiple months even, to go on your adventure? Or I guess you could do years as well, but not many people are going to be going in the years scale. But so yeah, if you, let's say you live in Melbourne like I do, and you want to go for something, an afternoon trip, right? Well, no matter where you go, you're going to be limited to within the bounds of Melbourne for a half-day trip. And yes, I know it's hard to get out at the moment, but this is what we're doing. We're planning for when you can get out again. So yeah, let's say, for example, I wanted to do the Inner Circle railway line. It's a rail trail, and I can see that it's within Melbourne. It's fairly close to the city centre. And you can, if you're doing a railway line, I'm going to put in a thing into the chat at the moment, a link to a useful resource. Okay, so this first link that I've put in the chat is a link to my railway map of Victoria that I built along with a few others. I've talked about that in my mapping live stream episode. But if you're planning to hike a railway line within Victoria, then this can be a useful tool. So if you then, zoom into Melbourne and click on the inner circle line, it'll give you a distance, and it says 3.24 k's. Now that's just for the Royal Park to Russell section. But you might also want to walk the North Fitzroy to Fitzroy section. So, let's say you want to do that. Error 404, okay. I can give you another link. This is the longer one, but it should work. All right, that second link should work. Okay, so let's say you want to walk both of those and you want to figure out, okay, is that doable in an afternoon? Well, I have found from previous experience that my average walking pace, when I include stopping for photos along the way and, snack breaks, anything, my average pace is about 4 k's an hour. So that's what I go off. So we see that the Royal Park to Russell section is 3.24 k's and North Fitzroy to Fitzroy is 1.17. So the Royal Park to Russell section of the line, you're not going to be backtracking on anything in there, but the North Fitzroy to Fitzroy section, you're probably going to walk down to Fitzroy and then double back in order to get back to where you were. So I'm going to account for that. And so you just want to see, okay, well, what's the total distance? It'll be, so you go you just get a calculator or something like that. 1.17 times 2 is 2.34, copy that. And now add in 3.24. Now, obviously, this is getting quite precise. You're welcome to round it off to the nearest kilometre, something like that, and you should be fine. So it comes out to roughly 6 k's, right? So if we go 6 k's divided by 4, because it's 4 k's an hour, and we're trying to figure out how many hours will it take us to walk, it comes up at 1.5 hours. So perfect. You've determined that you can do that for 1.5 hours. Now, there's a couple of historical stations along the way, so maybe you want to add in an extra half an hour to your timing just to account for that. So you're looking at roughly 2 hours to walk the inner circle line. Cool. So now you want to look up, okay, well, if I want to start at Royal Park, for example, It's probably best to go by train because you're starting and stopping at a train station, so why not? So look at the times, how long it will take you to get from, say, your home to Royal Park, and then from Rushall back to home. For me, the train ride is going to be about an hour each way once I account for interchanges and etc. So we're up to about 4 hours total journey. So there you go. That's very easily doable in an hour, and you probably don't need to write anything down with that. Yeah, you just go there and you should be able to do it. Now, you could add in some optional extras to that walk, like, I don't know, you might want to do the outer circle line as well in a day. Well, you can apply the same methods and look for the distances, and you're obviously going to be travelling by train on the Alamein line section of the outer circle line. So yeah, just account for all of that and see, can I do this in a day, for example? Now, that's a very simple example, and day trips are good. If you wanted to go further out for a day trip, say by driving somewhere, then you can obviously use the same sort of methods and sort of use Google Maps to plug in, the starting and ending destinations for a particular section of your trip, and look at the times and work it out. See if you can do it. And always allow for a little bit of a fudge factor, because if you plan things too rigidly, in other words, not allowing a bit of fudge time, then you'll find that all your times are going to be messed up because something took a little bit longer than you thought it would. And yeah, I've learned that one from experience, so I'll tell you that much. Not allowing enough fudge time. Now, for the more, let's say you want to do a bit of a more extreme day trip, like, you know what, let's go Lilydale to Warburton. That's a real extreme one. So that's about 40 odd Ks from Lilydale to Warburton. Could you walk that in a day? Yes, it'd be a big effort, because if you average at 4 Ks an hour again, it'll take you 10 hours of pure walking. And you've got to account for the fact that if you want to do it in a day trip, getting to and from the rail trail. And in that case, you're going to have to look things up, such as probably train times and bus times. The bus might stop quite early, so you've got to make sure, can I make it to Auburn in time to catch the last bus, for example. And that can be handy for other sort of trips as well. So, comments. Okay, the link's working good. James reckons that's incredible. Yeah, the map is pretty nice. Took, I think, about a year to make. A year of on and off working. Yeah, it's a good project. Bikes are available for lease on that trail. Oh, interesting. Yeah, you can absolutely ride. You could ride the Lilydale to Warburton Trail, and obviously you want to look at, okay, what's your average riding speed? All right, see you, Josh. And yeah, use the same sort of principles for determining that. And just, yeah, I'd recommend trying walking versus riding versus car. They all have their benefits and disadvantages, primarily in speed. The faster you go, the less detail you get to see. And in the case of a car, if you're in a car and you're trying to follow a railway line, the roads aren't going to line up exactly with the railway line most of the time. So, yeah, just take that into account. And you may well miss if you might say, oh, well, you know, all of the stations along the line are accessible by road. So what am I really missing out on by just driving to the stations and not walking or riding the track? Well, you're missing out on a lot of scenery to begin with, but also there can be things along the way that can be quite incredible that you would never have seen otherwise, such as bridges. I've come across a couple of bridges walking old railway lines that were really incredible, but I would never have known they existed if I wasn't walking or riding or whatever. Yeah, and generally with me, I don't ride abandoned lines, like when there's still tracks there, but I would consider riding a rail trail. So yeah, you probably, if you had a proper mountain bike, you probably could ride on the old easement of an abandoned line, but you figure that one out. So now that we've sort of got your basic day trips out of the way, how to plan your basic day trips, let's talk a bit about how to plan a weekend. Now, with a weekend trip, it's going to be more involved, and you're probably going to want to start writing stuff down, depending on how complicated your journey is, and especially if you want to be doing it with others. Even day trips and stuff, it's good to just write it down if you're going to be doing it with others, and just so that you can send them the rough plan. If you were just doing it with one other person, then perhaps just a quick phone call would suffice. But I find if I'm doing a hike, like a day hike across railway lines with a big group of people, it's best to type out the basic plan and then send that as a text to whoever is coming along. Okay. So, yeah, with say a complicated weekend trip, you want to start writing things down. Like if you were doing, for example, I want to complete the section of the Castlemaine to Maryborough line that we ended up ditching on, if you saw the video on Foggy Avenue about that. So I've determined through my planning that, you know, my rough initial planning, that yes, it is indeed doable in a weekend, again, using the same principles we talked about before in terms of looking at, you know, okay, how am I going to get there? What are the times for the trains and the buses, etc.? It'll all be done. in a weekend, and I've determined, yes, it can. So, yeah, now I want to go to Google Drive, my own Google Drive, and start a new Google Doc. In that document, I'm going to start writing down things like the transport times, I'm going to catch a train to Castlemaine, for example, and then change to a bus to go to Newstead, hop off at Newstead, walk back along the old line to Castlemaine, and then catch the train home. And maybe stay along the way somewhere. So I want to start writing down in my Google Doc, what are the times of the trains, what are the times of the bus, when are we going to be leaving Melbourne, when are we going to be getting to Castlemaine, when is the bus leaving, when does the bus arrive at Newstead, how long will the journey take, etc. So yeah, you want to start writing stuff down, and just the big benefit of doing it in a Google Doc as opposed to like a Word document or something like that, absolutely you can do that, but Google Docs is great for sharing with other people. So if I'm going to be going along the line with some mates, I can then send that to them, and we can all look at the same stuff. And if there's any sort of last minute changes or something like that, then everyone gets the update. So yeah, and you can start to add in other stuff, like for hiking and stuff. You might want to say, okay, we're going to be sharing some equipment, who's bringing what, stuff like that. And yeah, so this now morphs into the sort of week-long / multi-week trips. Now, these are going to get complicated, and it will take you a long time to plan it if you want to do it well. For example, let's say you wanted to walk the South Gippsland line. Now, if I get up my trip planning folder, public versions, South Gippsland, just checking that this is the right document. Yes, it is. All right, so I'm going to be putting in a link to the chat now. This is a link to the public version of the document that I use to plan out South Gippsland. So the private version is a little bit different, but the stuff is mostly the same. So you'll notice that I have created a map as well. There's a link to the map within the document. And you'll notice what I've done is I have traced out the railway line. That was the first thing that I did, was started tracing out the railway line and started to determine, okay, I'm going to be camping overnight, and I want to camp within towns so that I can have the facilities of towns available to me. So how far do I want to walk in a day? Stuff like that. Now, I've determined through my experience that about between 15 and 25 Ks is a good range for how far you want to walk in a day if you're doing a multi-week long hike, or even multi-day, I'll say. Anything more than a day, anything more, walking more than 25 Ks in a day gets very tiring very quickly. But of course, you can adjust those numbers to suit you. I like to, for me, the hiking isn't about the challenge. It's about having fun and, not stressing, seeing everything. So I don't ever want to be rushed in a day. I don't want to feel like I'm too tired to keep going, anything like that. And so that's just a bit about my philosophy behind that. But you'll see that I've determined, okay, where is we're going to start at Cranbourne, looking at the map, and where's the nearest significant town after Cranbourne? Well, it's at Coorap, and that's at 22.5 Ks away. So Coorap's going to be my first night. And then the next day, I'm going to be walking to Lang Lang. And that's not very far. That's only 7 odd Ks. But, and you'll see that in the map I've marked out that there's a section of the line that was inaccessible when I went there. Obviously, you're probably not going to know that ahead of time if you're creating your own plans from scratch and not basing it off my plans or someone else's plans. Like we walked down a section of the line and then discovered that there were blackberry bushes and no way around them. So, yeah. But you'll see that, so Lang Lang is only about, we'll call it 10 Ks. You'll notice that that's on the shorter end of things in terms of how much distance you want to walk. And so you might want to say, okay, well, what if we kept going to Nyora? Well, that's 13 Ks extra. So you're now looking at 23 Ks. Do you want to walk that far in a day? For me, I liked the campsite at Lang Lang, so I was happy to just have a nice short day and walk to Nyora in another day. So looking at the comments. Josh says he'd like to do the whole of Kajua, but that'd take too long. Well, not necessarily. From memory, it's about 100 odd Ks, maybe a bit less. The South Gippsland line was 150 Ks, and that took me 2 weeks to hike. So the Kajua line is definitely not out of the question. You've just got to find out how long it's going to take you. And, obviously set aside that amount of time. And this is what the planning stage is all about. It's determining how far you're going to go and how long will it take and all that. So I'd already measured out the whole of the South Gippsland line roughly beforehand, and so I knew it was about 150 odd Ks, and so therefore going at 10, an average of 15 Ks a day plus a few rest days, I determined 2 weeks or 15 days was a good amount of time for me to do it. And you can confirm that when you do detailed planning. James Penny says it's Castlemaine, not Castlemaine. Either or, mate. Yeah, even the Sam says, even the hippie citizens of Castlemaine say it as Castlemaine. G'day, Mishi. And yeah, that's right, Albert. Lang Lane was a covert location. It's quite a nice covert location. I'm even considering going back there just for a day or two to just camp, just as a general camping spot, because it's that nice. Anyway, so once you've sort of traced out where you want to go for each day of walking along the old railway line, you'll get to the point where you're like, okay, I've been walking now for, say, 4 or 5 days. It's time, I'm going to be pretty tired. It's time to take a couple of days to rest, and you want to determine, say, what is a decent-sized town that I can stay in for a few days. And for me, that was Currumbara on the South Gippsland line. And yeah, so I decided, okay, that's going to be a good place to stay for a couple of days. And as I'm tracing out the lines and stuff, I'm sort of paying attention to things like, is there a caravan park available? Because if I'm going to be staying somewhere for a couple of days at a time, caravan parks are nice because you've got water, a lounge, a kitchen, all of this stuff at close reach, and yeah, it's a good place. They're good places. They're worth paying for just resting up. So continued on with that. Now, you'll notice in the map that I've already produced that I've got a bunch of markers along the way, and those are things that if you're creating your own map from scratch, you're probably going to want to add them in after you've traced out the whole line already. So the markers are marking anything of significance that, it's just worth noting. So, for example, I've marked down old stations, and I've color-coded them to, depending on if, the entire station is there, or just the platform, or basically nothing. I could find that out before the trip, and it was just something that was worth knowing for me, especially the stations where not much was left. It was useful to know where they were so that I could look on my GPS when I got to that location and sort of see, okay, yes, this is definitely where it was. Can I find anything that remains of the old station? You also want to probably note down things like potential camp spots and other facilities that you might want to use, such as public toilets, or caravan parks, supermarkets, that sort of thing. It can just help you when you come into town at the end of the day. You've spent all day hiking, you're quite tired. It can just be nice to already know where stuff is, and you don't have to go hunt for it. G'day, Tony. How's it going? What does covert mean? Covert just means, out of the way. It's a bit of a les term. And, yeah. we just call any sort of out-of-the-way spot a covert location. So going back to the document, it can be useful to, now that you've got a bit of detail in your map, to start conveying some stuff from the map to your document, such as writing down how far you're going to be walking each day, and starting to plan out a more detailed itinerary. So you can see that I make good use of tables, and I've written down for trips a day, where I'm planning to go that day, how far that is going to be, and then writing a bit of an outline as to how I think that day is going to go, and making note on food, because some towns will only have a small general store, something like that. So it can be useful to know, okay, so I'm probably going to want to purchase a few supplies in the town before. Yeah. So you're just writing down the basic information as you sort of discover it, such as the distance, where you're going, and figuring out where are you going to have your rest days, how many days are you going to rest for, are you going to do anything else on that rest day? For example, I visited the Coal Creek Museum, historical park type thing, that's in Korumburra, on one of my rest days. So that can be something to think about. So yeah, once you sort of got a good outline running, and this is the beauty of a good document, is that you can, come back to it, add more detail, etc. It'll definitely take you more than a day to plan stuff. And yeah. Tony, it says chat number 0. I think that's an issue on your side, because all of the chat is showing up for me, and it seems like it's showing up for everyone else as well. So I think it's an issue for you. So scrolling down the document, you'll see the money need section. That'll just give you an idea of your rough expenses, no matter how long or short your trip is. I always like to just have a rough idea of how much I'm going to be spending. And then, yeah, of course, if you're going, I should note that if you're going into the country, a lot of shops will take cash only. So it's useful to just be aware of that, and make sure that you're going to be taking a bit of cash and not just be relying 100% on your credit or debit card. Now, scrolling down, you'll find items to pack. Now, if this is your first hike, you can absolutely look at what I've done, or you can look at previous hikes you've done, just think if it's any sort of other camping trip or whatever you're going to be doing, think about, what you're going to pack, and make a list. because you're gonna, if you don't make a list and you just pack everything the night before, you're guaranteed to forget multiple things. G'day, Brian. Haven't seen you on the live stream for a while. Yeah, so in the case of hiking, you also want to look at group items, because not everyone needs to carry duplicates of everything. You can look in the group items section of my document and see, sunscreen, bug repellent, maybe some soap, all of this sort of stuff. And you might say, oh, I don't really want to share soap, so change that to be an individual thing. Or you can be like us and say, oh, we don't mind sharing a bit of hand soap, but, we'll probably take our own personal shampoo for when we're at caravan parks. That's another great thing about caravan parks, is that they've got hot showers, and that can be a real relief when you're camping and hiking. Yeah, and just always be going back to the list before your trip and thinking about, is there anything that I've forgotten? Because chances are, you'll be laying in bed one night and you'll go, oh, I didn't write down that I should bring my pillow. So there's something. And it's a good idea to have a packing day to plan into your hikes, a packing day the day before or something like that, so you can go over your stuff. Everyone can potentially meet up and make sure that everyone's on board, everyone's got everything they need. If you're sharing gear, then obviously you're going to have to exchange that. For example, I personally don't have my own hiking pack. I've always borrowed one off of friends. So, yeah, you've got to make sure that that's available in time. Now, yeah, the other great thing about having a planning document is that you can go back to it once you have finished your hike and see what worked, what didn't work, and make notes for future trips. And that's the next thing I really want to talk about, is learning from your previous trips. You're always going to be thinking, there's something that didn't quite go so smoothly in my trip. You might have forgotten something or did something that just, it was okay, but if you could change it, you would. And so, yeah, it's great to write things down, and I'd recommend writing it down pretty much as soon as you get back. Write down what you're going to change, what things you want to change for a similar trip in the future. For example, with hiking, we've found that actually everything went fairly smoothly, and the only thing that perhaps didn't go according to plan so much was that we were getting quite tired towards the end. So maybe if we ever plan to do a future hike of that similar length, maybe we want to do 3 sets of rest days instead of 2. So, yeah, you learn from experience, and if you have friends who have been on similar trips before, it's probably a good idea to ask them as well. Say, hey, I'm planning to go on a similar trip to you. Have you got any tips or advice for me in terms of planning? So yeah, Brian says, I'm usually at work when you go live. It's nice to have some time off and slow down. Oh, very nice. Albert says, do you normally take a change of clothes for each day, or do you just wear the same clothes for the duration? It's a good question. I'd say it depends. We generally, well, the first thing to really determine is am I going to be able to wash my clothes at any point during the trip? And if you're staying in caravan parks, that's another option. But keep in mind that if you're going to be doing your washing at the caravan park, it's going to cost you some coin to operate the washing machines and stuff, and they might require you to bring your own powder. So that's a good thing, is when you write down in your planning document where you're going to be staying each night, and you determine, okay, I'm staying at this particular caravan park on this night, then you can ring them up and say, hey, how much do you charge for your washing machines? And they might say, oh, $4 for a cycle, and bring your own powder. So just make sure that you account for that. Generally speaking, you'll be able to exchange notes for coins, or get sort of cash out, if you like, at the caravan park office to operate the washing machine and stuff. But getting back to the clothes, if you're only going to be staying in that caravan park for a night and you're going to be heading out the next day, your clothes are probably not going to have enough time to dry on the line, and so you're going to want to account for putting your clothes in the dryer as well. For us, we wanted to reduce the amount of time that we had to put our clothes in the dryer. So we made sure that we had our own pegs, because, yeah, they'll generally supply a drying line, but they won't supply pegs. And so, yeah, we determined that we had, I don't know what it was, it seems, 4 days between Cranbourne and Currumborough, and then 1, 2, 3, another 4 days between Currumborough and Foster. So determining that once you figured that out, 4 days before 4 days between washing your clothes, then that can be a good metric for you to decide, do I want to take a change of clothes for each day, or do I want to wear the same clothes for 2 days at a time, 3 days at a time, even 4 days at a time? Depends on how much weight and space you want to take up in your pack versus your own personal preferences. And you can absolutely do a combination of things, such as with us, we obviously want a change of underwear each day, and maybe a change of t-shirt, but a shirt we could wear for a couple of days at a time, and pants and socks, a couple of days at a time is fine for us. And so, yeah, it's just something you want to sort of have a look at and determine, yeah, how long do you want to go for? G'day, Lee. How's it going? What else do I want to talk about? I'll talk a little bit. I think that covers it for hiking, unless anyone else has any questions for big long hikes. I'll talk about how I planned for my Queensland adventure. Now, I can't share this one with you because I knew I was the only one coming on it. I decided to do it in Pages because I just felt like Pages was a slightly better program than Google Docs. But yeah, so the different sections I had was I had an overview section. No matter what my big-ish trip, I always like to have a sort of overview / outline section in my planning document where I sort of list the day and then roughly describe what I'm doing on the day. I had a transport section on transport where I wrote down in a table which flight / train / bus was I going to be taking in order and where was its origin and where was its destination. Now, going back to sort of near the start where I said documents are a good thing to share with other people who are also going on your adventure. Similarly, they can be great to send to people who are not going on your adventure but would like to sort of roughly follow along. It's always good to tell at least one person who is not going with you where you're going and what you're doing, just so that if anything does happen to you by chance, then yeah, they can perhaps help to arrange help for you. It's just nice as a general rule to know what somebody's doing sometimes. For example, I always tell my parents if I'm going on a big trip, and I'll send them that document, my planning document, even though, yeah, you could say, oh, well, I'm 22 now, I don't need to tell them what I'm doing. Yeah, I don't, but they like to know and they like to sort of just follow along and they're not going to interfere, so I'm quite happy to provide it for them. I also wrote down, I also did a table where I listed the towns / cities that I was going to in order, and when I was going to arrive at that particular town / city, when I was going to depart from that town / city, and then a third column was my sort of spare time. So yeah, how much time have I got to do whatever I want to do in that town? And yeah, I just remembered, I actually go through this document in detail in the 10th part of my Queensland by Rail series. I talk about in detail exactly how I planned it all. But I also wrote down things like ticket prices, different attractions I wanted to go to, and how much they would cost, how much my accommodation would cost, and that way I could figure out a summary of expenses type thing And yeah, it's again, just your planning document is all about just writing stuff down so that it's a quick reference for you and for others. So Tony says, do I like hiking or car adventures more? I can't say I prefer one over the other because they both have different advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, in a car-based adventure, you're probably not going to get as tired, but you can cover more distance and see more in less time. But with hiking, you're going to be more tired, but at the same time, you're going to be able to see a lot more detail and, yeah. Hiking is just something that I find enjoyable as well. So, yeah, neither is good or bad. It's just, yeah, something to consider. What's my favourite rail trail? Well, I haven't actually walked that many rail trails, but I guess I'd have to say the South Gippsland one is very scenic. But yeah. So, yeah. Even no matter whether you're going by train or walking or by car, it's always a good idea to just have things as a reference. And yeah, when you're starting a new document for a new trip, for example, if I want to plan another big hike, one of the first things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going back to the document for my previous big hikes, i.e. South Gippsland, and I'm going to be looking at what parts of that document can I just directly copy. For example, the packing list. I can copy that and then make adjustments depending on the exact circumstances, such as, who the group items are going to be slightly different because slightly different people are coming. But yeah, I'm going to be looking at what can I copy just directly and save time so that I don't have to just duplicate something by directly typing it out again, and I didn't have to. But I'm also going to be looking at within that document when I've written down anything that I learnt from that trip that can be applied to future trips. For example, I talked about my Urbex road trip in previous live streams, and I talked about how it was too rigidly planned, and I determined from experience on that trip that I shouldn't have been so strict about going to so many places in a day. So I wrote that down, and I'm going to take it into account for the next time I do a big Urbex road trip. Do I have a blank template of those documents by any chance? No, I don't. Generally what I'll do is I will copy directly. If I'm starting a brand new planning document for myself, I will start it from a blank. I don't have any sort of template, even for my own use. And I will then open up previous documents at the same time and just copy anything that I need to, that I can directly copy. And I'll also just have a look at, the basics sections such as outline, transport, costs, stuff like that. And just quickly write down in my new document any of those, like a heading for any of those sections that I think are relevant. If I think I'm going to be creating a table for something like the outline, then it can be handy to look at previous tables I've done and see, like, okay, I can see that I made 4 columns for the table. And then I know that, you know, it's a 10-day trip, so I'm going to have 11 rows in the table. It's 1 for each of the day plus the title block, the title row, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's not something like, I don't have a direct template, but I definitely do base my new documents heavily off of my old documents. And yeah. Daniel says, I want to walk the whole of South Gippsland Railway before the rest of the rails are pulled up. Yes, that is something that would be good to do. And you can go back through the chat and find the public link to the public versions that I've made. I would suggest just copying that and then pasting that into a new document of your own, and then modifying it to suit your own needs. And yeah, I mean, that's basically what I do for my own planning anyway. The final thing I want to talk about, because we've been going for a bit over an hour now, is I'm planning to go to Rubicon at some stage and film a full documentary type thing on all of the power stations in the area, and I want to walk all of the hydroelectric tramways that existed and still exist in the area. So I followed the same basic principles that I talked about previously. I've started with a map, and I've built myself up a basic map, and I've done the initial planning to sort of determine how long will it take me, how is it achievable in the length of time that I want to allocate to it, all that sort of stuff. I've started a document for it, but it's a little bit different than usual in the fact that because I'm filming a documentary type thing, I want to make sure that I get all my facts right about the power stations, the tramways, etc. Now, I could just memorize it all, but you're risking getting stuff wrong. So in that case, I've decided that I do want to write myself a script, and yeah, so I've determined that I want to put the script within my planning document, and yeah, I'm just getting it up so that I can talk about it a bit more. Yeah, and I've split the script up into sections for each item that I'm going to be talking about. And I'm also going to be creating a shot list, if you like. So I know in my scripts that I'm going to be talking about on the power stations. I want to make sure that, say, I get a wide shot of just the power station, for example. These things aren't necessarily going to be relevant to you if you're not like me and trying to produce a documentary type thing. But yeah, you can sort of, it's helpful to just have everything in one place. And you're not going to know all of the details when you first create your document, but that's the point of it, is that you're writing stuff down as you discover it. And you can use what you've previously discovered to fill out even more information in your own document. And the Rubicon trip is going to be an interesting one because we're going to be combining cars and hiking. And we're going to be utilising having multiple cars there at the same time to be able to go to different sections. And yeah. So, yeah. It'll help. I hope that all of this talk has helped you. And yeah, I hope that you can learn something from it and start planning your own next adventure. Albert says power stations are incredibly interesting if you're electrical engineering minded. Yes, they are. I'm studying automotive engineering, not electrical engineering, but I have yeah. Feel free to modify anything that I've said in this stream to suit your own needs. And I'm sure that I myself will continue to modify my own plans to suit my own needs. So thanks everyone for watching. And yeah, next live stream in 2 weeks' time. Hope to see you all then. See you later.